Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, wake me up when November ends. That's the slogan a lot of Sens fans are rolling with after a fifth loss in 6 games over the weekend. This one, 6-4 against Tampa Bay.
And it's been 5 days since Pierre Dorion and the Sens went their separate ways. So who are some potential candidates for the new GM job of the Sens?
Lots are coming out of the woodworks. We'll discuss who could be the best and maybe the worst of the bunch. All that and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 910 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. You can find the show on social media at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where a like, a subscription, and a comment go a long way. Today's comment, we want to know who your top choice is to be the new general manager of the Ottawa Senators. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Today is Monday, November 6th, and Pssy, I can't believe it's only November 6th.
I know. I need November to roll along a little quicker here, as we knew it was going to be stressful. We were all nervous about November, but I don't think any of us anticipated it was going to go like this within the first 4 days, Ross. This is absolutely brutal.
7 more games in the month of November, 2 of them in Sweden, the rest on home ice, except for Wednesday. Battle of Ontario, the first Battle of Ontario of the year. The Leafs have been kind of up and down throughout the year. We'll have our full game day preview on Wednesday, but this is going to be a hungry bunch of Maple Leafs that are going to smell some vulnerability coming into their building, because the Senators, they're frustrated, and they seem like they always have this push at the end of games after it's already too late. So I know it's kind of cliche to say, what's holding them back? Start on time, right? But what's holding them back from getting? When's the last time the Sens had a 2-goal lead? When's the last time the Sens had more than a 1-goal lead?
Or Pitt, I guess. Pitt, maybe?
Pitt, yeah. So it was, but I mean, that one, even still, they pulled away and then gave up one. So yeah, it would have been in the first period against Pittsburgh, and then they kind of just coasted from there. But I'm just looking for a little consistency out of this team. And I don't know, I don't want to throw one area under the bus. I just think as a whole, they just got to be better.
I think it's going to be hard to get consistency, Ross, unfortunately, when you're down 5 main players on your roster. I think what we're trying to find here is, and this is a Steve Staios buzzword, is stability. And it seems like there's not stability in the organization right now. I mean, they're about as fragile and banged up as I am right now, as this is a flu game for me here, battling through, though. And just like Brady Tkachuk, there's frustration all over, but we're going to give a full effort here, Ross. Full effort.
What do you think, what do you think of Brady Tkachuk's comments from after the game on Saturday?
We talked about it in the postcast, Ross, before we even heard the comments. I mentioned how, there's not a lot of things to be proud of as an Ottawa Senators fan right now. I don't think Sens fans are puffing their chests out like maybe they were in the offseason or at the start of the year, but there's one thing I'm proud about. It's the way Brady Tkachuk leads this team. And man, yeah, here's the quote from Ian Mendez's article, Ross. Maybe you should read it, as I should do less reading rather than more.
It's frustrating, the negativity from the outside, the constant booing, and the bullshit from the crowd tonight too. I understand they're a passionate fan base. I love it. But when you're facing adversity, you don't turn your back on the guys out there. I mean, we're playing hard. It's not like we're giving up out there.
And the thing is, Ross, I don't look at this as like an athlete calling out the fans. Like that didn't even really cross my mind here. I look at it as a guy in Brady Tkachuk who has a lot of pride. He's putting it all out there. There's no doubt about that. He had one hell of a game in Tampa despite a losing effort, or against Tampa, I should say. And I couldn't even imagine, like Ross, imagine us right now doing the podcast and there's 18,000 people booing. Like all our Sens Central citizens that have been on the show are just booing us and saying fire Pillsy. Like, I don't know what I would do. It'd be pretty tough. So I know these guys are athletes, the pros, they get paid millions of dollars, but at the end of the day, they're still people, and that's got to hurt. And I didn't think he really lashed out at the fans. I just think he wanted to validate, hey, look, I get that you're frustrated. I get that we're not winning games and it's not looking pretty out here, but I just want to make sure the fans know it's not for a lack of effort. And we understand that people pay their hard-earned money to support us, and we don't want to let them down. We're doing everything we can to avoid that, but it's tough. Like he's facing the music, I guess, and that's not an easy thing to do. And for a guy in his early 20s leading an NHL team and facing it like that, I thought he handled it pretty well, Ross.
Yeah, I'm cool with the fans booing. I wouldn't have been a part of the fire DJ chants. I think that.
And I'm not against the fans booing. I hope I didn't come across like that.
Wow.
If you want to boo, you go ahead and boo. That's totally fair.
Big time. And it's not just this 10-game sample size that people are booing. They're booing 7 years of not being where they need to be as a franchise that probably got far too used to being at the top for too long in terms of regular season success. From the time I was like 7 years old until I was in university, it was playoffs every single year. Or
at least every other year. Like they had a long stretch where it was every other year making the playoffs.
Yeah, and then you get to a point now where it's 6 straight seasons where they have not made the playoffs, and now this 7th year, they're starting out with 4 wins in their first 10 games in a schedule that we admittedly said preseason was cupcake. They're at home, no back-to-backs, days off between games, and yes, injuries happen, but they happen to every team in the league. And there's teams that have played a lot more difficult schedules. Now I'm looking at the schedule in March, and we talked about that with Mark Mathot last week. Like, this is not going to get any easier. Now, the only thing is that with the Sweden trip, they're going to have some games in hand, but is that a positive or a negative? Because they're going to be played in quick succession. Now, maybe injured guys will get back. Shane Pinto's suspension will be done. Hopefully these things all lead to a few more wins. But is it going to be too little, too late, which feels like the theme of the season in game and in adjustments and in figuring out a way to get out of bottom of the Eastern Conference? Pillsy, the Senators are waking up this morning in last place in the Eastern Conference, dead last through 10 games.
I don't even think the biggest Sens haters could have predicted that this would happen. Like even Leafs, Habs, and Red Wings fans wouldn't have been like, yeah, the Sens are going to be in dead last in the East at this point. Like, no one anticipated this. The expectations are much higher than last place in the Eastern Conference. And yeah, it's the famous quote or line that's going around. What do the Sens and the Titanic have in common? Sitting at the bottom of the Atlantic.
But back to Brady's comments just quickly. I don't understand it, all the hate for him. It's like, it's pretty, like, I would almost call it soft. Like, he said he's frustrated with us. You should figure it out.
Yeah.
What do you want? What other emotion do you want out of him? I thought that was just raw emotion from the captain. And not only, like, people are saying that, you know, he should be stepping away from DJ. It's like, no, he's the captain of the team. DJ's a part of the team. He's going to have his back until day one. We talked about it on the postcast. I think it's time for a change behind the bench, like yesterday. But Brady's, I would be more upset at Brady if he jumped ship on the coach or turned his back on the coach. That he's being a leader.
Agreed.
So I don't get why fans are turning their back on Brady Tkachuk. We'll get to Brady's stats as captain of this team. He's doing his part. So to say anything about Brady's comments to me is misplaced as hate or frustration with the organization, with the team, with the results. But Brady's been doing his part. So I think that he's very much within his right to, say what he said on Saturday night. Minutes, we should add, after a frustrating loss. Like, that's what I think fans are sitting in their chair at home. And like, I even saw some people the next morning be like, after sitting on this for 12 hours, here's why I think Brady went over the line. It's like, Brady didn't have those 12 hours. Brady had about 12 minutes after the game. And he said what was on. He wears his heart on his sleeve for better or worse. And that's a captain I think that the whole team can rally behind. So I got no problem with what Brady said.
Yeah, I have no problem with what Brady said, Ross. In fact, I thought he couldn't have handled that situation better, honestly. So for the people that are having issues with this,
let us know why in the comments.
Yeah, explain it, because I would love to hear it, because I'm not sure how else Brady was supposed to react there.
Kind of funny timing that the next day after those comments was the 2-year anniversary of Brady Tkachuk being captain. We'll look at the stats over the last 2 years. Next, we'll also get into our general manager search, where Bruce Garriock has added another name to the list of quality candidates. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. If you guys are watching on YouTube, if you're listening on audio, you're probably like, what is Pillsy doing not in his studio, and why does he sound like he has no voice at all? It's because I scored awesome tickets to the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Bills game, and the Bengals, they did what they had to do, and they got the W, and it was an exciting game, and I was cheering like crazy, and I got no voice now, but the only way I was able to enjoy that was by going to Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful, guys. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. It's the best place for last-minute ticket deals. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, and theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. In fact, if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds. Time is money, so just 2 taps, 1, 2, and boom, you got tickets on your phone. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Shawarma Palace. You know how much we love Shawarma Palace. Go there, get the platter, get the sandwich, whatever you get, you know you're going to be fuel-filled because these fresh ingredients will keep you humming throughout the day, and it is always quantity, quality, mixed together into a perfect shawarma wrap. You can get the chicken shawarma, the beef shawarma, the falafel. You can get the shawarma poutine, all at Shawarma Palace. They now have 7 locations, and that's a lot considering they started with one humble beginning, one location back in 1997. And now here they are expanding as they should. You can find them on Innis Road, on Bank Street, on Rideau Street, on Carleton University's food court, on Woodruff. They're also in the Saint Laurent Shopping Center. So go grab a shawarma today. Get the extra garlic. Let them know Locked On Senator sent you. It's the only place to go for shawarma in Ottawa. Eat like a royal. Go eat at Shawarma Palace. All right, Pillsy. Licking our wounds after a 6-4 Senators loss over the weekend to the Tampa Bay Lightning. A must-win game that we had circled before the season even began with no Andre Vasilevsky, but the Tampa Bay Lightning got a pretty solid performance, I will say, from Braden Point, who led the way offensively in that game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was the first star. He was a hat trick, had an assist, 4 points, but it really did feel like self-inflicted wounds were the reason why the Senators could not get that done. We have more on the postcast, over an hour on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, we went after dark discussing the head coaching situation in Ottawa. But Pillsy, let's stay with the GM search, which we believe naturally you want to have your GM in place before any decision is made on the bench. Now, results might change that. Something might have to give. This team has lost 5 of 6 and are going into a stretch of 3 games in 4 nights. If they lose that game against Calgary as well, full panic mode, because the Flames are having maybe the worst start outside of San Jose and Edmonton in the National Hockey League, even though Edmonton just beat Calgary in the outdoor game. You get my drift, Pillsy. This needs to stop now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ross, like, obviously you've got the Leafs and the Canucks before the Flames, but like you mentioned, the Flames are spiraling out of control, just like the Ottawa Senators right now. And if the Sens can't beat up on them before heading to Sweden, I mean, that's going to be a tough trip. And I don't know what game I'm more nervous for, Ross, the Leafs or the Flames, because, like, I don't know. I'm nervous for all the games. I thought I would be excited for these games. Not so much.
No. We have 2 days to get back into the saddle and figure out how to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. But now let's touch on Brady Tkachuk's captaincy, because it's come under fire with the way people have spoken about the leader of these Ottawa Senators. He was named captain on November 5th, 2021. And since then, he's played 165 games. He has 158 points, most on the Senators over that span. Has 72 goals, first on the Ottawa Senators over that span. He has 655 shots on goal, an average of just under 4 shots per game, first on the Ottawa Senators. He has 258 penalty minutes, first on the Ottawa Senators. He has 511 hits, first by a mile on the Ottawa Senators. This guy is leading by example personified.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't really understand how people can have a problem with Brady when he's been so consistent. Like, you just, like, those 6 stats we just listed off are some of the biggest stats you can look at. And
do you want to guess who the 3 players are who have more shots on goal over this span than Brady Tkachuk? It's a decent list.
Ovechkin.
Nope.
What?
Ovechkin's played 14 less games, but he has 30 less shots.
Stammer?
Nope. Think of the alphas in the NHL.
McKinnon.
McKinnon is number 2.
McDavid.
McDavid is number 6.
Draisaitl then.
Draisaitl's not even close.
Who's number 1?
David Pasternak.
Yeah, I should have got that one.
He has 738 shots in 157 games.
Oh my God.
Nathan McKinnon and Austin Matthews are the only players with more shots on goal than the captain of your Ottawa Senators, Brady Tkachuk. So he's leading by example from that. Maybe a stat you don't want him at the very top of. Only Pat Maroon has more penalty minutes than Brady Tkachuk in the last 164 games in the entire National Hockey League. So Brady, I mean, that's one area you probably want him to cool it a little bit, but still impressive that he's right up there. He's 2 points behind Jonathan Tavares, as Biz copied your line there on Hockey Night in Canada.
Nice.
I don't know if you saw that. He was calling it all night, but this guy is the least. Basically, the whole reason for this segment is to show people that Brady Tkachuk is the least of the Senators' worries. They got big problems. Brady ain't one.
And he's always backed up his talk. Like, he's had to go through so much adversity and be a part of such wild Ottawa Senators years. And he's been so consistent, and I'll use stable. He's been consistent and stable. So I love Brady Tkachuk. Anyone else that has anything else to say? I don't get it.
What did you think of DJ Smith changing the lines up going into the third period? Are you hoping to see that continue into Toronto on Wednesday, where it was Brady Tkachuk back with Josh Norris and Drake Batherson? And then they split up. They put Timmy on a line with Claude Giroux and Mathieu Joseph.
Yeah, I like that. I think, look, we all like the Brady, Timmy, Giroux line, but like if you look at the points for the Sens, like those are the guys that are leading the way, plus Tarasenko, and you got to start spreading the wealth or doing something to mix things up here, unfortunately. Yes,
you certainly do. I did like, though, the fact that Claude Giroux was put with Roby Yarventi, one, to help with face-offs, and two, not that Roby played every shift with them. They were mostly, they double shift Timmy, they double shift Norris. And that's something that we talked about in the postcast. Like, you cannot, I know that DJ's like, he's coaching for his job right now, where it's like no mistakes can happen on ice, but he's almost shooting himself in the foot by only playing 4 defensemen and 10 forwards. Like, use your bench. Use it.
Well, Ross, it's like what I talked about. When things are going bad, everybody thinks they have to be the hero. So instead of DJ just rolling 4 lines like he probably should, he's like, I'm just going to trot out my stars and hope that they get it done. And then those guys are getting more frustrated, more tired, more desperate. And it's not effective. It's not a recipe for success long term.
No, it's not. The Senators have to figure out something quick here because the season is slipping away and we're 10 games in, Pssy. We're 10 games into the season, and I'm already saying how things are slipping away. One thing that needed to change was that Norris, Kubalik, Tarasenko line.
I didn't like that at all. Yeah.
It worked about as well as you thought. They played 6 minutes together. The expected goals percentage was 24%. While they were on the ice. 4 shot attempts for 11 against. So, yeah, let's not see that one anymore. The Senators had so many different line combinations. They ran 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different line combos at 5-on-5. So, hopefully they can figure out something that works. I get it. Injuries are a factor here. No Ridley Gregg, no Mark Kaslik, and half of the decor is out. Hopefully, maybe we get Artem Zub back in that game on Wednesday. Because, Uncle, I can't see Jake Sanderson play with Travis Hamonic any longer. I just can't. Enough's enough.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Pillsy, let's get to the list of quality candidates for the Senators GM job next. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Guys, FanDuel is the trusted sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's North America's #1 sportsbook also. Why would you use anywhere else? I'm not sure, and you'll be convinced once you check out their app. It's safe, secure, easy to use. It's my favorite sportsbook app for sure. I had a lot of success, a lot of green numbers in the FanDuel account with the Bengals game. I bet on the over, the spread. Well, the over didn't hit, but you can bet on over-unders, the spread, the money line, player props, Joe Burrow passing, whatever you want, you can find it on FanDuel. And Pillsy's parlay took one night off, but it'll be right back going when the Sens play the Leafs on Wednesday. So the only place to play Pillsy's parlay, you got to do it on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at the GLEBE Central Pub. You know and love our friends at the GLEBE Central Pub. You can find them at 779 Bank Street, right in the heart of the Glebe. And when you get there, let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. Whether you're heading down to Lansdowne for, a walk or a 67s game soon, Ottawa's PWHL team will be
alert
in the mix. The alert. So go make sure you're on your way there at the Glebe Central Pub. They also have the shuttle to and from Ottawa Senators games, $17 round trip to and from the CTC. So you can book those tickets on the website, GLEBECentralPub.com. Send shuttle, great vibes. You can go see Sue gets you to the game well. She gets you back to the Glebe Central Pub all in one piece. So don't worry about all the outside noise. Just focus on going to the game and having a good time. Head to our friends at the Glebe Central Pub, 779 Bank Street in the heart of the Glebe, and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pillsy. News that I don't think is very surprising. This comes to us courtesy of Elite Prospects Transfer. It's a rumor for now, so we'll see as it develops. Did you see Yuri Smejkal after scoring his first AHL goal?
I've never seen someone less inspired after what's supposed to be a celebration.
Rumor is he's going back to the SHL.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm not that surprised, but I thought it would last a little longer than this.
Yep. 20 minutes ago, he's rumored to be going back to the team he came from in the SHL.
Oh, man. This happened with another player with the Sens last year. I'm blanking on the name.
A while ago.
Not Schlappy. It was a guy they brought in. I'm not going to find it, but this is a concerning trend. If this continues to happen, European guys that are brought in to Belleville and then pretty soon after, they just hightail it back home because they're I shouldn't speculate, for whatever reason.
Guess who his agent is?
Craig Oster?
Craig Oster.
Oh, man. Come on.
Well, this is just one of those things where it's like, come on. Like, I know it's a different GM, but I thought he showed well in preseason. It's like you don't want to give him a look. He probably saw Zach McEwen get called up. He's like, I'm out of here. This is crazy.
Yeah, honestly. I really thought Smejkal would be an extra forward at the very least. Like, I didn't think he would spend that much time in Belleville, and by the sounds of it, I don't think he thought that either.
Wow, we wasted serious concentration calories this summer breaking down his game, eh, Pills?
We really did, yes.
It's unfortunate. And again, this is a rumor for now. We've sent a text out to our Belleville connection, and we'll see if Yuri's on the bus after Belleville had a road trip of a weekend. Pillsy, from bad news to good news, Artem Zub is out there in a regular color jersey for the first time.
Hey, there we go.
Might be back.
That's good news, Ross. This decor needs Artem Zub more than we realized.
Well, this organization probably needs a little leadership at the top that could get them into a situation where players aren't going back to their homeland before having a chance to finish up their first season with the organization. But all jokes aside, we've compiled this list of names who are speculated to be on the radar. None of these are slam dunks. You know, there's no favorites as of yet. These are just the list of names that we've seen thrown around in various news outlets for the Senators GM position. Most recently, it was Bruce Garriock last night that added Sean Horkoff to the mix. He's the assistant general manager with the Detroit Red Wings. And remember what we said, Pillsy, there's going to be a natural connection to Steve Staios and or Michael Andlauer. Sean Horkoff and Steve Staios played about 500 NHL games together with the Edmonton Oilers. So it would be no surprise for him to go with someone who he's very confident and knows as a person as well as a hockey mind.
Yeah, I definitely think it's not going to be too hard to connect a lot of dots going through this GM search here, as I'm sure they're going to pick someone that at least Staios and or Andlauer are familiar with. And I mean, there's a lot of connections all over, and so we can kind of work on all those connections and how we feel about each guy one by one here, Ross. So who would you like to start with for the Sens GM candidates?
Well, I like Matthew Darche. I think and we tweeted this out at Sens Central, Matthew Darche is the favorite among fans, and that's who's in the photo that we put up here. He's hoisting the Stanley Cup, which he's done twice as a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's the assistant GM there. And Pillsy, I knew that he played for Hamilton. I didn't realize this. Michael Andlauer's first year owning the Hamilton Bulldogs when they were an AHL team, Matthew Darche was his captain. So that's an interesting little connection too.
I did see he played for Hamilton, but I didn't realize it meshed with Andlauer owning the team. So that's definitely a big one there. And Ross, another connection. I believe Matthew Darche interviewed for the GM job in Montreal when Michael Andlauer was a minority owner there, and Andlauer sat in on those interviews. So he's well aware of what Matthew Darche brings to the table. And like you said, I mean, he's holding the Stanley Cup in the picture we're using of him. You love to see that.
Yeah, his resume speaks for itself with Tampa. He's been there
Yes.
for 5 years, director of hockey operations, now assistant GM. He's just a guy that it will be a GM soon. He's interviewed for multiple positions, and you know that eventually he's going to get his chance to put a stamp on a team. Peter Chiarelli, probably we go from most to least popular here, but Peter Chiarelli has plenty of experience dating back to, well, the late 90s. He was with Ottawa as their legal consultant, becomes the assistant GM in Ottawa, goes to Boston, drafts, develops a Stanley Cup core there, makes the Tuukka Rask for Andrew Raycroft trade. And then more recently, his resume does not speak so loudly. The Edmonton experiment went about as awful as you could. He did draft Connor McDavid, though, Pillsy.
Congrats.
Hey, his first move as GM was drafting Connor McDavid. You got to give him some credit there. Nah, that's about as easy of a slam dunk as you could get. But when you look at his overall body of work, there's not a whole lot to get excited about, at least in recent times. But he also, look at connections. The word on the streets is that he is someone who helped Michael Andlauer throughout the sale process, just being an Ottawa guy and advising. So I'm thinking he would be more suited for an advisory role at this stage in his career rather than the GM position. Right now, he is the senior vice president of hockey operations with the St. Louis Blues. Going down the list, let's go with John Ferguson Jr., because I was a little surprised to see that name out there. He was on the other end of the Rask for Raycroft trade, former GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, we already tried hiring the Leafs' old assistant coach to be the head coach. That didn't work. Like, I know that he's with Arizona now. He's the AGM. He's way younger than I thought he was.
Yeah.
But he also has a connection to the Ottawa Senators, Pillsy.
Yes, yeah. John Ferguson Jr. was a scout with the Ottawa Senators from 1993 to 96. And then from there, he went on to be an assistant general manager with the St. Louis Blues in 97. And he's been in front offices pretty much every single year since. So, look, you talk about Chiarelli, that's a guy with a lot of experience. John Ferguson Jr., also a lot of experience. I don't know, it's kind of hard to get a good read on him because the most shine he's had was as general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but also we're going back like over a decade. Like, he was with the Leafs from 03 to 07. So like it's been a long time since that was the case. So I don't really know how I feel about John Ferguson Jr., to be honest, Ross, because it's been so long since he's been the guy steering the ship here.
Yeah, and in Arizona, obviously, there's plenty of financial concerns and obligations that can maybe be the reason why they are where they are in the standings. He would not be a name that I'd be super excited about in a GM role. Again, if he wants to be an advisor, anyone with experience, I would welcome as an advisor from this list. Jason Spezza, obviously best known as a player for the Ottawa Senators, but don't look now, but like, he's been in management for like 5 or 6 years. It's not like Jason Spezza just retired anymore. Time is slipping away, Pillsy. And for Jason Spezza, he's made the most of it, kind of following around with Kyle Dubas, first in Toronto and now in Pittsburgh. So he's the assistant general manager for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And obviously, it's a name with plenty of connection to Ottawa. We know Andlauer is doing his best to honor alumni. I don't know if this would be in that category, but I also don't think it would be a courtesy like, oh, he has name recognition in Ottawa. He's the guy. Like, just like Mathieu Darche, like, he's working his way up through the ranks, and he will be a GM one day.
Well, Ross, actually, I think your timelines are a little slipped here. Jason Spezza hasn't been doing that for that often. He was still playing with the Leafs in 21-22.
What?
Yeah. So he just had the 1 year as special assistant with the Leafs, 22-23, and now this year with the Penguins. So he doesn't have as much experience as you might think here. And look, I'm not going to bash the guy for not having experience. I mean, it's like the classic job industry today. All right, it's an entry-level job, but you need 3 years of experience. Well, how do I get experience if I can't get a job to get experience? So I'm not going to bash him for that. I do think Jason Spezza is a very intelligent hockey mind, not just on the ice and as a player, but he thinks the game past just the ice. And I always said when he retires, I wanted him to be an assistant GM in Ottawa, but I'm not looking at Jason Spezza thinking this is the guy that can come in and be the GM right now and kind of stabilize everything. And plus, I think he likes his buddy Kyle Dubas too much. He's not about to leave that job anytime soon.
Yeah, he just got to Pittsburgh as well. Ryan Bonis is a name where if they want to look internally, I'm sure he'll get an interview. But to me, it's like he's already the AGM. Like, don't you want to add someone from the outside rather than promote him and then you're still just looking for an AGM at that point?
Yeah, agreed. And I feel like I'll apologize. I feel like we've been talking about the potential candidates for GM and we haven't even mentioned Ryan Bonis. Look, that's not a slight to Ryan Bonis. I think he's done a good job. He's really done well filling in the Belleville roster with proper pieces, bringing in more veteran guys, things like that. So I think Ryan Bonis is doing great where he's at. And Michael Andlauer even said it. Right now, Ryan Bonis is going to get a little taste of more job responsibilities and duties than the typical AGM would get. Everybody's being asked to kind of elevate their roles and what they're doing with no GM here and this quick, sudden change. So I just think it would make more sense to keep Ryan Bonis where he's at and bring in a new general manager that has more experience.
What do you think of someone with zero experience in management but has plenty of experience around the league? And that, my friend, would be Craig Oster, who is Brady Tkachuk's uncle, but also the head of Newport Sports, one of the most powerful agencies in the National Hockey League.
Look, when you talk about general managers, an important thing, Ross, is you got to be respected around the league. Like if you're going to be going, making trades, having relationships with all the other general managers and president of hockey operations and things like that, it's important that you're respected around the league. Like that is a big deal. And Craig Oster certainly is respected around the league. I don't know. Like I think this is becoming a story. I don't have any insider information or anything. I'm just speculating. I think this is becoming a story because this is the path that Montreal took recently. And Michael Andlauer,
who was with Montreal at the time?
Yes, Michael Andlauer was involved with that. So that connection is very obvious, and I get that. For me, I'm putting any agents that might be candidates in the same list as guys that don't have experience as a general manager. I'm not saying they couldn't do it or wouldn't do a good job. It's just I don't think that's the approach that the Ottawa Senators need right now. Again, Steve Staios emphasized stability. I want someone that knows how to steer the ship and will be able to transition into a general manager job with ease.
Pillsy, we got line combos today.
Ooh, let's hear them.
Well,
thank God they're practicing. Jeez.
I know. Before I get to that, though, who would be your number one candidate?
I'll power rank top three. How about that? I'll give you a top three.
That for you.
Thanks. Top of my list, Matthew Darche. I really think that he makes a lot of sense coming from a stable organization like the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's someone that Michael Andlauer is familiar with, like we talked about. So I like the idea of Matthew Darche as a leading candidate here. I think Sean Horkoff, the Steve Staios connection, will have a major impact on this. I mean, Ross, even Matt Nichols, the connection with Steve Staios was very present there. So I think Horkoff definitely will be in the conversation here. And as far as my third one, unfortunately, I think Peter Chiarelli is probably got a pretty good chance here just because of all the experience he has. Not the guy I would personally want, but I think he's probably very much in the mix here.
Let us know in the comments who you want to be the next GM of the Ottawa Senators. My final thoughts for today's show are the lines at practice, and we will see more of Norris, Tkachuk, and Batherson. That is the top line at this morning's practice. Tim Stützle is between Mathieu Joseph and Claude Giroux. They're keeping that all together. Now, where things kind of go off the rails, for me at least, is Rourke Chartier. He have what? Does he have 0 points or 1 point this season? Either way, this guy's he's got one assist.
He's got one assist.
1 assist in 10 games. He was dashed 2 in the last game. He gets the opportunity to play between Kubalik and Tarasenko, while Roby Järventie, maybe the least suited fourth liner in this entire organization, is centering the fourth line between Parker Kelly and Zach McEwen. But it all feels better when you look at the top pair. Jake Sanderson is back with Artem Zub. Exhale. Jacob Chychrun is with Jacob Bernard Docker. Tyler Kleven is with Travis Hamonic, which means Nicholas Matin-Palo is the extra defenseman. Korpisalo and Forsberg are the goalies. Your thoughts on how today's roster shakes up?
Well, I actually like Rourke Chartier, Ross. He's very good in the face-off dot. He plays a strong defensive game. I know you just mentioned...
Not a third line. Like, this is like having Dylan Gambrell at third line center last year. Like, it has zero excitement.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's where I was going with that, is he's this year's Dylan Gambrell.
We have a correction from Claire Hanna. Travis Hamonic is the extra defenseman.
Oh, wow. That is shocking.
I mean, it's shocking, but it shouldn't be.
Exactly. No, that's the thing. Like, I'm shocked that DJ Smith took him out, but if you look at his stats and how he's played last couple of games, that would be the guy you'd point to and say, hey, take a night off.
I would say so. Yeah. Now, the only problem is Kleven and Matin-Palo now we're seeing it both ways. We're seeing it both ways. So we'll see what happens. We'll discuss tomorrow on Locked On Senators, but the bottom line is Artem Zub is back, which means a right shot defenseman is going to be on the outside looking in. But Pillsy, lots of kind of fear, I think, on today's show, like fear of the way that fans are reacting to Brady Tkachuk, fear of 5 losses in 6 games. The only potion that feels strong enough for this is hiring a qualified candidate for the Senators GM position and beating the Toronto Maple Leafs on Wednesday night. A win against the Leafs and then a win against Vancouver, because I think that's an extra problem. These will actually be my final thoughts on today's show, is that there's also been so many days between games that you just stew on the same losses. So now 2 more days off. Well, I guess the rest of today and all of Tuesday, then a game day on Wednesday, and then 3 games in 4 nights. Like, bang them out, win all 3, and you're above 500. It's that easy.
I like it. That, you know what, Ross? That's a great plan. Let's go with that. Win all 3 and you're back to 500. Final thoughts for me are, I agree, Ross. I don't love the idea that Chartier is the guy there. I think he's perfect in that fourth line role. And I think Roby Yarventi would thrive in between Kubalik and Tarasenko. I think that's a guy that, he's got a bigger frame. He's got good playmaking ability while also having a nice shot himself. So personally, I would have put Roby there and Chartier back down on the fourth line. But at this point, I'm willing to try anything.
I'm willing. Perfect call for help at the end of today's show. We'll be back tomorrow. We're just working out a time for Meth to get him back on this week, working on a Sens Central Citizen. Lots of great things planned as we head into the most important week of the season. Sens have 3 Canadian opponents. They're on the road in Toronto, back home against Vancouver on Thursday, and then they got the Calgary Flames on Saturday. In the meantime, follow us on social media at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.